being an artist, I was amazed that one of Phyllis's first jobs in New York City, this is a secret I'm revealing, is that Phyllis was a fashion designer in New York City. And I like that very much. But what amazed me even more is that Phyllis also was a fashion model at that time. And I have a rare photograph of Phyllis. Of course, Phyllis came to Baba through a beautiful group of women who were working in New York City with Princess Narina Machiavelli and Elgin Tolstoy, and Kitty and Elizabeth were also there, and Phyllis moved in and lived with these beautiful Baba people, and also waited 9 years to meet Baba. And Baba came out of the New Life phase, the Mananesh phase, and immediately after that came to the several other times, and without further ado, I will say, here's Phyllis.
Say Baba all. Burned out on Phyllis, so so I feel very lucky to be invited again. And as always, I don't know what I've... How many here is this their first visit and their first hearing of Baba, more or less? It's always nice to know how many people are hearing about Baba, just as a new person coming to Baba. I was reminded by someone of my appearance on the Joe Pine show, where he was attracted to me because I had the sensational opening phrase that he used on the TV show, "I have met God in human form." And I was just thinking of that astounding fact. I can't get used to it myself, that I actually met God in human form. I'm just beginning at the top of memories. And I think I would like to share memories with you. Going into the philosophy of Baba, I think is, it's okay, but it's like the second generation from actually meeting Baba and feeling Baba in the heart, like all of you do. Baba said something interesting, that realization comes when the mind and the heart are balanced. So just having heart or just having mind is not enough. And Darwin Shaw had an experience of that one time. It was very impressive to me. He actually felt his mind coming down and his heart coming up and kind of meeting and blending and feeling God that way, that in creation we're kind of split between mind and heart. And you find that in your own life in some ways. You're going toward the mind things and you're going to the heart things. And for many of us, especially in the Kali Yuga, it's hard to balance those two things. In Baba, you see the perfect balanced person. He's the example of the ultimate in creation. And in him, there's the balance between the human and the divine. So when you say you meet God in human form, it is just the most fantastic thing that nature produces, the creation produces. God is one thing, and man is one thing, but God as man, and that is our destiny, that is our goal. And how did it actually seem? So I think sometimes you got more of a glimpse of Baba as in the divine side, and some of the very human side. Before I met Baba, of course, I had not seen him in the body, but I still had some of the glimpses of his human side through letters and through cables, through the memories of these women whom I stayed with. But I really wasn't prepared for that very, very human side of God. I first began with an experience of Baba inwardly that he gave me, much to encourage me, I'm sure, through the years of waiting. And it was what you'd call a spiritual experience, a mystical experience. I may have described it once before, but as masters do, as the avatar does, sometimes give you a glimpse on the path that is very, very tremendous. I had heard of Baba through these women. I'd listened to their stories, and I'd accepted mentally that he was God in human form. But in this experience I had, I'll describe it sort of like a fantasy, but it was a real experience. I was traveling on a very, very narrow, like a thread of light. And on one side, there was very beautiful landscape, just beautiful. On the other side, there was a dark, shadowy, kind of threatening landscape. On the left side, the right side was beautiful. And I walk and I walk and I walk, and there's Baba at the end. And I embraced Baba. This was a real inner meeting with Baba. It wasn't a dream thing. It was like a real experience. And at that very, very second that I embraced Baba, I felt his divinity. It's just a fraction of a second of that divinity of Baba, that Baba shot, that I experienced that in such a way. I never experienced that height of his divinity again as that first experience before I ever met him physically. And it's like Adi says, the conviction comes from that experience, that beyond the mind, really. I could never doubt that Baba is God. But then many years went by till I actually met Baba, and that was a whole different thing. I'd waited and waited, and Baba came in 52 to Myrtle Beach, and you can imagine the tension through the years, because every 6 months or something, a letter would come. I'm coming to the United States, I'm this, I'm that, I'm going to break my silence. Then came the new life, all of those things. You can go back and read the family letters. It was tension, let down, it's Baba's Maya that he does. Finally came the day, and that was May 10th, 1952. And I rode into the center, and it was just like the center of the universe. It was really a peculiar stillness of nature. You felt it all the way. Probably if you were someone who could see, you could see that all nature focused on that one point where Baba was in residence, in a little hut, a little lantern cabin. And there was Baba on the steps, and my first glimpse of him as a man. But those eyes looked at me. I can't describe that look of love, of recognition, of total acceptance. Held out his arms, and I embraced Baba. And then he sat down, I sat down. And I think that Mayurji was in there, but I don't remember reading his alphabet book. And he first asked, "Do you love me?" That's Baba's first question to you, if you see him. "Do you love me?" And I said, "Yes, Baba." And he said, "Do you know where that love is coming from?" And the love swept from his heart, invisibly, like just into my heart and back again and round, just incredible feeling. And so I knew that my love for him was just my feeling that current going through. And I felt that was between me and Bob at that moment, but I felt it with people, with other people, like I feel it today. They're just bodies out there, but we're all as one love going back and forth, in which your identity just dissolves. And that was my actual physical meeting with him. Then I spent a whole week there with him, and that's where I got to see the human side. The divinity I had experienced in this inner experience, and the human side was what I slowly got to know, although I'd heard, so much about him through the women mandali that I was very lucky to be with. The first thing was Baba gesturing like this. And I knew it meant his heart was Meira, go and meet Meira. And that is the very, very most human side of Baba. And it has its divine side too, his feminine counterpart, who represents the world, Maya, the cosmos, illusion, and also his own personal beloved. And this film, if it's working, is it working, Bruce?
Yeah.
Right. It's a very rare film. It's never been shown. It is of Meira and Baba. It's an intimate film. And I hope you appreciate what that means. It is an intimate film of Baba and Meira. And I haven't seen it myself since it came from the lab, so I'm as excited as you to see it. Meeting Meira was just the second privilege after meeting Baba. And by the way, you all still have that wonderful privilege now to be over there in India and to meet Baba's beloved Meira. And I had heard so much about her from the women who had lived with her in India. I won't go into her story, but she had been kept in very, very deep seclusion. Even when I first heard of her, Elizabeth or Narina would give me a photo of Meira and say, now keep it, don't show it to anyone. We're never allowed to have it out, and especially where a man could see it and all that. Of course, that has changed, but it was this precious, special thing to even hear about her, much less, communicate with her. So that was the second privilege. And to see Baba with her that first week in '52 was something I'll never forget, because I did not see them that way again. After the accident, things changed. She had a very severe accident with Baba, as you all know. And then in India, in '62, it was different. She didn't come to the United States again after that. But to see the love between them, to see her reflection of Baba's love as a perfect reflection of his love, a perfect balance. And yet, as you all know, Baba's complete in himself, the avatar is complete in himself. But that was a very, very special thing in my life, to have shared that, even that much of their company. It was a very, very wonderful privilege. So that was the human side of Baba. Another human side of Baba was a sense of humor. You hear about it, but you don't know what it really is. And when you're the butt of a joke of Baba's, that's something, very unique. And one day, we were sitting there, and Baba was going like this. And everybody, we had the privilege of being with Baba and the women. Everybody was sort of, and I was doing it, you see. And Baba was imitating my nervous hands. And he does it so sweetly when he imitates you and makes fun of some little trick you have. It's so delightful. And another time it happened to me when there was a moment there of open day, May 17th, when people had a chance to see Baba in the barn. And the barns, when Baba's at the end of that barn in Myrtle Beach, and you're walking alone across to Baba at the end, it just seems like you're crossing the Mojave Desert or something. It just seems like ages, So I heard laughter behind me, and Baba's smiling, and he was imitating the way I was walking, I can't describe it. Baba's a perfect mimic. He is just the world's greatest actor. For example, when he told the story of Mansari and the snake, which you probably have all heard about, how she wakes with a cobra on her chest. And Baba did the snake, with his eyes, and he did Mansari, and, just to see him act out anything. So his sense of humor is so delightful. And he always appreciated humor in others. And about things you wouldn't think he'd be humorous about, like in '62. He brought out the chart of the four journeys was brought out, and Francis Ravizan very solemnly goes through the whole thing, and it's from God Speaks. And Baba said, "Do you understand it?" He asked one particular person, Francis answered for all of us, and Francis says, no. And Baba says, I don't either. You know, and he used humor to relax you, to make you feel at ease, and that was another wonderful human side of Baba, that he could make you feel, wherever we were with him, relaxed, at ease, not nervous. You think you're going to be in the presence of God, you can imagine you're going like this. You know? All your background or non-background of religion, you know. And somehow Baba's sense of humor and his delight in little things, I can't remember so many of them, but he enjoyed his universe, the little quirks and funny things that would happen. And his noticing of tiny details of people was also very, very unique. I hadn't expected that every tiny thing would be noticed by like one time he looked at me and went like this. Well, it meant my hair was messy. Get it straight, you know. You know, very, very subtle, you know. Just wonderful little touches of Baba. So day after day we learned Baba's humanity, and his physical suffering was very real. Even the heat in Myrtle Beach, you know, was so awful, you know, drenched in perspiration. And Baba was hot and sweated like the rest of us. But unlike the rest of us, a beautiful perfume around. And I was lucky I got his clothes to wash. He handed me these clothes. I couldn't believe they were supposed to be dirty clothes. They smelled so divine. I went around, everybody could smell. And they were, you know, it was like today Peter took me to the Holiday Inn Lodge or whatever it is where we were with Baba. And I showed him the room where Baba was, and there's a balcony above it. We used to hang there, at least I did, and Adele and a few others, and this incredible perfume would come up from Baba's room one layer below. And I said, come, smell it. And there were no flowers around there worth, you know, any perfume. Perfume would come up, and pretty soon a whole bunch of us were, you know, so it wasn't one of those astral things, it was real. So that was another human divine, I don't know, side of Baba. Another thing about Baba was his taking his place down on the earth with us, suffering all these small humiliations of ordinary life. I again think of one at the Sufi Center. We visited it with Murshida. That was the old Sufi Center, small center. And Baba had called me along, which was kind of unique. And there was an elevator there, and a very grumpy elevator man. Anyway, someone came down in the elevator. We were waiting to go up, Baba, in a little narrow hall there. And this man got out of the elevator, and like people do in a city or anywhere, paid no attention to what, you know, he just brushed by, almost knocked Baba down, didn't look at him, didn't look at any. And I thought, first of all, waiting for an elevator, God, waiting for an elevator, you know, and then someone just, wah, you know. And just being with Baba like that, in those funny little situations, or waiting in an airport, or having to go to the bathroom because we waited an hour and a half. Baba, this was in Wilmington Airport, and of course those were the days before these things were changed. There were two bathrooms, black and white. So I see Baba get up, go to the bathroom, and he takes one look at the black and the white toilets, you know, and he goes in the black toilet. And, you know, little funny things like that. Human side of Baba, God interacting with just Maya wherever we were. On the plane, we were on the plane in 56 from Wilmington to Los Angeles, a night flight. And Baba never slept. You know, we always heard Baba never slept, but when you're on the plane with him, everybody, you know, it's pretty tiring. And there was Baba, one little night light over him, and he never slept. He just doesn't sleep. And you know, sleep is only for the non-realized. When you realize you don't sleep, because you have no mind. As Baba's explained, sleep, the mind needs sleep, not the body. Your mind cannot take the constant pressure of sanskaras, of impressions. You have to stop and go into the beyond state. Otherwise, you couldn't take it. But once you realize you're out of illusion and you can take the unbroken bliss, and I'll take it anytime. But anyway, these little human things. Adi would come out like this in the morning. Meant Baba slept 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Imagine that. After a full day and doing his universal work everywhere, but plus being with us, Baba would sit there many times and say, while I'm sitting here with you, I'm working all over the universe. So you just, this peculiar blend of God and man that nobody, theologians cracked their skulls over for 3,000 years. There it was. You were sitting there right with it. And that was very impressive. The balance, you see, of his consciousness. It's a theory, the mind and the heart. But to see Baba manifest it so easily, he knew every thought of every person there, plus the whole universe. He would show in any 1,000 of ways that he knew your innermost feeling and thought, things that you didn't know about yourself. Anybody who had a mood or something, speak up, what are you thinking about? If he wanted to do that. Or he'd work out something between you without words, without even any, seemingly really to glance at you, but you know that you were communicating. And that was a miracle because it happened with 3 in the room or 10,000 people at 62 darshan. That you were sitting there with all those people, and he knew right there what you were and what you were thinking, and your problem and your thing. And, the universal mind. Baba said one time, just spontaneously said, I know everything. Everything comes to me, knowledge comes to me automatically. When you think about it, just like your eyes automatically focus the whole thing, you don't really struggle to see. So this infinite knowledge comes to him, which is totally different from saints, yogis, anybody that, sweat and strain to find out something. It's just all automatic for him. And he would never show off at all. That was, to me, the most amazing. Here he has these incredible universal consciousness, universal body, universal mind, all those divinity things. And not even by a ripple of his skin would he just show off any of that, except for fun sometimes. Like we were sitting in the garden after the accident in this place in Scarsdale, and he kind of twinkled his eyes and tapped out this message. The Winterfells are coming. Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, they'd drive in spontaneously. They showed up. Everybody tried to get in on the act with Baba, which you could just think up any scheme to be with Baba was okay, They have to deliver a letter, and you had another vitamin for him, and, anything. And we all got very clever at thinking up ways to. I'm a terrible sewer, I'm a terrible cook, and terrible everything. But right away I volunteered, I'd clean up the kitchen, I'd sew Baba's sadra, anything. And so we got Kitty or whoever was in charge said, oh yeah, fine, do it, So the first one offered, I got it. So then we got a little crew together, Beryl and Adele, we all volunteered to do something. So at the crack of dawn in Baba's house there in Myrtle Beach, we all assembled to be instantly ready to mend Baba's sadra, boil him water for tea or whatever, anything we could think of. Dust the floor, clean the ice cream. And then Baba would come out of his bedroom. I'm just rambling now. Shut me up if you're... I'm just sharing my memories. Baba would come out of his bedroom in the morning there at Myrtle Beach, and he'd see us all there in the kitchen, about 5 girls. And he was so tickled we were there that we cooked up a reason to get in there in his house while the rest of the people were snoring away in their cabins. So then we got a hug in the morning, and this means how did you sleep? So to share Baba's life like that, like the Mandali have, or the women Mandali even more intimately, And I'm so glad my mother chose, or whatever, these genes. I'm a woman in this life. Great. As you got more of Baba, you see. All it. Intimate. Ray for women. But, all the intimate part of Baba, sharing with him in his home there, Myrtle Beach and other places, was so neat. And when he comes again, I don't know, I'll think about it, but I think being a woman is great. And that was that human and divine together side of Baba. And I was thinking of other things about Baba that were very impressive. One was his beauty. Now, I met him in 52, and he would already be about 58, I guess. And this was before the accident. And this one time I saw him, I do remember visually how gorgeous Baba looked, even at that age. He was sitting in the lagoon cabin. It was sunset, somehow the light was just the golden light of a sunset. His hair was loose, his profile was not, it was perfect then before the accident. And beauty is God's work. It does draw you. You know how a picture of Baba, probably, I don't know how many people here have just come to Baba as a picture. There's something about that total manifestation in Maya, in the human body, in the flesh. And they say, in mystic circles, that it takes generations of genes in a family, of avatar family, to get it all together so that the avatar has this incredible spiritual beauty, physical, spiritual beauty that Baba had, and that he had as Jesus and Buddha and all that, and the different racial types, but all is that beautiful. I was thinking that today we were in Gumps looking at all those gorgeous things, and they have these beautiful Buddhas there. And whatever the artist was, nobody knows what the Buddha really looked like, but they get that feeling of beauty that attracts. And his voice, I know Meira, and she has a beautiful voice, said that Baba's voice was exceptionally beautiful. And she almost says it with tears in her eyes. For them, you see, who heard Baba speak and who heard him sing, they remember that, and I think they could understand what that sacrifice of giving up that voice meant. It was a tremendous sacrifice in many, many levels to not speak. And of course, they who heard his beautiful voice could appreciate that. Silence. So Baba had beauty. His motions. I know Margaret, the disciple who was a ballet teacher par excellence, said Baba had a perfect spine. Is that right, Brenner? Yeah. Baba had a perfect spine. And she knows what a perfect spine is. There's that one movie, 36 movie, where Baba, you could see, and they all told me how beautiful Baba was in the early days before, physical handicaps came. He had the most exquisite feet even to the end. And that's where I cheated a little. I knew that in the new life phase, when we weren't allowed to touch Baba. So I went out and I bought some sandals. And I got the right size, I don't know, very intuitive. And so Baba let me put them on so I could touch his feet. Oh, it was little cheats, It's like I used to send him cards. We weren't allowed to write to him. So I just sent a Father's Day card, or Valentine's birthday card, Father's Day card, anything. Or pictures. I sent pictures of our group, just photographs, nothing, no explanation, just a photograph. And then Bob would point at, this one, he likes this one, he likes that one. Pointed at Peter, like Peter. He didn't seem to mind any of those. It's like, the game of Krishna and the gopis. You kind of cheat a little to get Baba's attention. And that was like playing games with him, too. But woe betide you if you step over a certain etiquette line. I saw some people do that. You have to sharpen your intuition and your sensitivity. You play a game of love, but you don't presume either, So, I'm waiting to play the game again. I wish that 700 years would hurry up. All the little lessons. And those women really helped me so much. I heard so much about Baba beforehand. Now, you don't ask him questions. You don't suggest, well, Baba, I think this would be better. All kinds of things. I was very, very grateful for that, because I'm sure I avoided some trouble and got into other trouble, sure. Baba loves to stir up sanskaras. And that was another thing. God alone here and man alone here. But God, man, combines in himself the opposites of Maya. So you also see a positive and negative side to Baba, but in a divine sense. So Baba wasn't always the love giver. He also was stern. He could be angry and disapprove and all, but in a way that you can't imagine. It has no sanskara in it of anger or ego, you see. So your first experience of Baba being displeased with you is another whole story from the love side, you see. And you accept that, too, as the balance, the God and man, and the balance of Maya and divinity there. It's just a subject, you could go into great mystical depths about the balance there. Is perfect. And of course, if you don't appreciate who Baba is, then you would get upset by his negativity, apparent negativity, or indifference. That was another thing. All those women and men had to go through somewhere, sometime, Baba's indifference. I think Margaret, or she'll tell her story in her book, by the way, which has come out, The Dance of Life, tells a story when Baba, for no reason and never explained, said to her, this is when she was living with the women now in the ashram in India after many years, I don't want to see you when I come here. I don't want to see your face. No reason, no explanation. He would come to visit the women's ashram, and she would have to disappear, hide. And this went on for months, right? It was a long time. Yes, she said that was the very, very hardest time. I can't imagine. There was no explanation. Just had to suffer through that. Adi went through it. You've probably all heard Adi's story. How he would come with the mail to Meherazad, and Baba would say, who is that man at the door? Or then there was Rano, who for quite a few years was always scolded by Baba. It seemed like nothing she could do right for Baba. And she'd just be in tears. Now, you've met Ra, she's a real strong lady, For her to break down in tears. And finally she cried to Baba and said, Baba, I can't take it anymore. Send me away. I can't take it anymore. And then Baba quit. But it's like that grinding thing, that what you might say was the negative side of Baba, working on your sanskaras, positive and negative. Which, of course, any religion tells you that God has those sides, both sides. Shiva, Vishnu, Brahman, positive and negative. I think that was something lacking in at least the Orthodox Christianity that is thrown at us sometimes. God is only the nice things, and the loving Father, but the Father can be stern and discipline you too. There is a perfect balance. I'm just trying to think of the elements of Baba to share with you. There was Baba's great cosmic mind giving us teaching. We sometimes forget that in the Baba group. We're so oriented toward Baba in love and our interconnection and our day-to-day working with him on our sanskaras. But he has presented to the world an incredible cosmology, incredible metaphysics. It's so condensed. It's like, some very condensed syrup or liquid or potency of food for mankind, for the mind of mankind. And I always say about a book like God Speaks, it's like a time bomb ticking away in the life of mankind and the creativity that it will stimulate in all branches of human knowledge, psychology, science, anything, story of evolution, the clarification of religious quarrels that have been going on. I mean, I've been recently going back and studying some Buddhist metaphysics, and they can get so muddled up, even though they started out okay, or Christianity or Judaism. I mean, these points that have baffled man for so long, and Baba just slips through them in God Speaks. You really get to the nitty-gritty. I mean, it's incredible what lies there in the discourses in God Speaks and some of the other places where Baba, many places, including the Bacchus Awakening, where Baba has laid out such intricate, fantastic detail, and also has opened up. As you know, most teaching was a secret doctrine, even in religious groups. You had to be a disciple, you had to be initiated, you had to do this, that, and the other to come to these inner teachings and ideas of inner life of the path and all. But there it is, all out in the discourses for $5 or God Speaks or whatever it is now. I mean, it's incredible. And the descriptions of the cosmic hierarchy, of the planes, of the steps in the path, it's just incredible what's available there in very, very compact form. We kind of are so used to it, we don't see how revolutionary it is. When you see intellectuals out there struggling to come to one little small bit, for example, a theory of evolution, acquired characteristics or something, and you see how Baba says the sanskaras and the impressions and so on, explains the whole thing. It's fantastic to me. I appreciate that a lot. Although with Baba you totally forget all that. And I think of the days we spent with Baba, and you think now, I'd love to noodle some of these questions in Baba on some of the points. But actually, there's still a book, right, folks? But I think just like Baba's silence is very, very impressive at a time in mankind's life when we have all these communicative means, electronic media, TV, radio, tapes, records, movies, and Baba actually stayed out of all of them, right? Except for a few films. And the same way, we have some of these things that we have not yet shared with Baba. His thoughts in the book are being kept till a point in history where we'll appreciate them. And some of the turmoil we've been going through now on how to relate to Baba, the inner directed and the other directed and all that, the book will probably come at some point which will break the knot that, I wouldn't say just the Baba world, but the whole world, which we're somewhere near the hub, hopefully. We'll get into conflicts, and I feel the book will come at just that moment where it'll just be very, very critical and help us a great deal. I think it's perfectly timed. It's not an accident that we don't have it at this moment. Anyway, I'm rambling along. But my last glimpse of Baba gave me, you can't appreciate, Mimi, how incredible it is to have an audience alone with Baba. We had a chance in May, the second day I met Baba. The few of us who were there were invited to be all alone with Baba, no Mandali in the room. And I had that privilege, and Baba slowly tapped on his alpha board. Do you have any questions? And actually at that point my mind went completely blank. And then Baba said, those who ask for nothing get everything. Which is, I lucked out. That blank mind was very useful. But I had another chance like that, a private interview with Baba. That was in 1962. By chance, how funny things work out. It was the first day or second day we were there. And officially, Baba, we were going to see him the next day in Guru Prasad. And so the previous day, Mayurji was always in charge of banking and whatnot. We were all went in a huddle. We were all shepherded to the bank to change rupees, which is so ridiculous in India. It takes about an hour for them to change $5 into 10 rupees. And here we were all lined up, 200 people. So it went on. And while I was in that bank, I felt I didn't like it. I knew I should be somewhere else. Sure enough, as soon as I got my stupid rupees, I jumped out of the bank and I grabbed a cab somehow and I rushed back to this little hotel. And there in the little box was a tiny piece of paper, and I opened it up and it was, Baba wants to see you. Like, and it had a time on it, like 10 o'clock or something. And this was like 11. And I tell you, it's just ghastly to think you miss something like that. My heart was my boots. So I got another cab, and I said, well, I'm going anyway. I'll go to Guru Prasad. So I come up. There was nobody there. It was an empty place. And I go up the hall, and finally some mandali comes out. And I showed him the little note. I said, I was in the bank. I couldn't help it. Mayurji took it. So he said, wait a minute. And he went back. And I really honestly didn't appreciate totally, even to this day, what this was. Baba then came out, and he called the women out. And so I was all alone with Baba and his women. He actually had gone back and whatever, retreat or whatever, from what he had done while we were in the bank, had called for a few, and some were able to come. I think the Shahs had come, and everybody. Few. But I had missed being in the bank. So he regrouped and came out with Meera and Mani and all of the women. And I had just a few minutes alone with Baba. And that view of Baba that I had, I leaned down to embrace him. And of course, Baba is small. You'll see that in the film. And I'm taller, so I had to lean a little. And so I looked right down into those eyes, and I can always see those eyes of Baba. The light was just perfect, so I could see exactly the color of his eyes. They were dark brown, and the depths of that look, it's like that look is with me forever, of Baba. That was in 1962. Baba had been through these 2 accidents, and he was older and all that. The strange thing about Baba, though, no matter how old or sick or whatever, which shows on film, but in his presence, there's some peculiar thing. It was physical. I don't think it was just psychic stuff. He glowed, so that his skin glowed. It shows on the film wrinkled and old, but the skin, right, brother? It just, the life, the energy, the love was so intense. It was a physical youth and health in his face that was really not, registering on the camera at all. It was just I don't know, another thing about God being man and man being God. His body also had a peculiar feeling. Like if you held his hand, it was like, it just wasn't like anybody's hand. It was it had no impressions, is really what it is. It just was like a baby's hand. It's just so soft and pure and just something really like a rose petal. I got an extra alone trip with him. So I just want to give an impression of how it actually felt to be with Baba. He had a tremendous stride, and they say, and I'm not going into these reincarnation memories and stuff, but they even say in police work that you can tell a person, they've tested this, most easily by the way they walk. that if you had 10 people behind the screen, just their walk, you could identify them. And the walk that Baba had was an incredible stride. It would float along, and it was so incredible. The big, tall guys could not keep up with Baba. When we trailed him around in the center, and the young, tall men were always way ahead, they still couldn't keep up with Baba. He almost floated over the ground. And when I first saw Baba walk, something did click in my head, that I had seen him as Jesus, that he had the same walk. The same walk. And, it kind of, you had those little feelings that you know somebody. And you do, when you meet Baba, you know him. And people who never heard, like you've never heard of Baba till tonight, okay, you meet Baba and you say, I know you. It's like meeting a relative or somebody, because he is your relative. He's the one relative of us all. And that's why you feel so close to him. Somewhere, somehow, you've shared the most intimate life with him. And whether this is actually true in your karma, that you spent 10 days with Jesus or something, it's also the fact, and this again to me is why I feel Baba's God. And it is that mystical feeling that he is you. It's not like some other even perfect master, let's say a Pajni or something, knowing everything, just like Baba knows everything too. But he actually is that Atman that you really are, that lived your whole life. So of course he seems familiar. He's your real identity. And in some mystical moments, he kind of rips the veil, and you know that. And like I said, in that split second I had, it can never be taken away. I don't care if everyone in the whole world stood up and said Baba's not that. It doesn't mean a thing. That's it. He's it. And because I'm sure that is the final gift, that you realize who you really are. Baba says the whole creation is going toward that. So what does Baba do to help us today? That's the big problem, isn't it? And I do go over my memories, but I also miss experiencing Baba right now, just like everybody, because he has to be reached in here. And to do that is hard sometimes. You got all this Maya and emotions and all the blocking of sanskaras. So how we unblock those sanskaras to reach Baba again. It was very nice to meet him, be with him physically, to get cables and warm letters and all of that. But now I have to struggle, just like everybody, to also find Baba right here and now. And that means working on myself. Not paying too much attention to how other people are. I mean, they all have their problems. But I've got to work on my problem, and my problem is me. And I think that is where it hurts, because it's so much easier to get out there and say what everyone else is doing wrong. You don't spend all that energy on finding the blocks in yourself. And I took just recently a trip to Myrtle Beach. I was very much wanting to contact these women who had meant so much to me and are now way past, all of them are past 85. There's Kitty, had her 90th birthday, and who's the most active of all. That's the most amazing thing. Running around her little golf cart. That's my last sight of her. She waves, on her golf cart. Bye, Phil. And Elizabeth, who looks somehow just angelic now. She has this fringe of silvery hair and these beautiful blue eyes, and her body, of course. But she's just she's incredible. And Margaret Crass is also very dear to me. Those three women were there, and I really made kind of a pilgrimage to be there, and also, of course, the center where I met Bob. And it was a wonderful thing to be with them again and feel their just rock-solid dedication to Baba. I mean, those lives are something. The privilege of being with Baba so many years, but you could be with Baba so many years and not learn either, that's true too. But they have been just honed down like these beautiful things we saw in Gumps, those beautiful pieces of jade, polished and carved and translucent. They were just beautiful souls, and I'm so happy I saw them because, they are not too long for this world. But I also, that was a wonderful Baba part of my trip, but I also saw some family and went through some family things that just threw me right back into facing myself and my own limitations. Family don't appreciate that you followed Baba at all. They know your worst points. And they bring up all the nice, nasty things you've done. And you have to say, yes, I was a shithead, I did. I'm sorry. And, oh, you're a hypocrite. Why, get off this hypocritical stuff. And so it was like a total opposite. It was just really Baba pulling the rug from you, You think you're so wonderful and so spiritual, and you go see the saints in Myrtle Beach, and bam, You do all the wrong things, you say the wrong things, and it was very instructive, and I like that. Baba, it's like in this Diary of Donkins that is in my new magazine. Baba, he says, I get, Baba ticked me off really today, that English word. And he says, I like that. He really likes being beaten around the ears better than being praised by Baba. And I've sort of gotten to that point too, get the kick in the teeth. It's kind of nice. I really have to. Now you can do it, first one up here. But it's like we had a big session in our group last night, and there's some really hot stuff flying around, I'm sure you have those meetings too. And at the end, we have a thing now, we kind of evaluate the meeting, one person, 1 minute for each person to say how they felt about this meeting, whatever they want to say for 1 minute. And everyone felt that it was good that we all spoke out our feelings. Some were very negative, and some were very positive. Some were this, some were that. Oh, we had 13 people, all very different. And I just said, I love it. This is one of the best meetings we've had, when we really, unzip the girdle and just show all the feelings. It's good. And that's what being with Baba, seeing that balance, you just see, and the mandali that have been with him, and I think mostly, of course, right at the moment, I'm thinking of the women mandali, how they've learned to deal with the negative side of life in an honest way with themselves and with Baba. And I think that honesty, Baba says absolute honesty, you have to remember it goes from top to toe. It isn't just not cheating on your income tax, but it's emotional honesty. Anyway, I think I've overreached my time. Does anybody have questions? We were supposed to have questions a little bit. Yeah?
Does Baba in the subtle body come and visit us like here at the meeting? Is it a regular thing that he does?
A regular thing.
Would you repeat the question?
What?
Would you repeat the question?
Yes. Gentleman asks, is it a regular thing that Baba visits us in the subtle body? Now, you've read God Speaks, I hope. Baba told us to read it 10 times. He has a universal body, a universal mind. He has a mental body, a subtle body, and a gross body. And about, any number of shades, I'm sure, of manifestation in between. And Baba does, when he dropped that physical body, which is like an old pair of pajamas or something, he has all those other bodies. And he can definitely visit you. And I have seen him in one of those forms. And, he's here. Can be here anytime. Regularly, I don't know. I don't think you can pin the avatar down. Anybody else?
I'm sure that's true. What about Baba saying he went to sleep? That makes that always takes a little gift to wake him up and then come back.
Yeah, I used to think of that. He said I'd go back into my divine Sahaj Samadhi, I think is the right word. or Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But you forget he's the avatar. He says also, I maintain my connection with the creation. And his period of manifestation isn't over, so that has a special meaning too. Baba's everything. I think he's in his Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and I think he's right here on some invisible chair here enjoying the whole show. You cannot limit avatar.
It's like knowing everything and not knowing.
Yeah, there's some of those things where, in the Sava sayings, God does absolutely everything by doing absolutely nothing, and all that kind of stuff. It torques your mind. Don't worry about it. God's here in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
The hour of the day that Baba dropped by.
What I was saying?
Yeah.
Well, by my reckoning, we were always, I think it's 11 hours behind them. They're always 11 hours ahead. So 12 noon ahead would be almost midnight by us of the following day. And I had a very strange experience at that time. A lot of people did, which I didn't understand at that time. But I think hearing the news at the early crack of dawn, it was just about 2 o'clock in the morning when Murshida called me, and she said that Don Stevens called from London that Baba dropped the body. And that's an incredible telephone call. We couldn't speak on the phone, And then I hung up, and I just sat there, and I thought, who should I call? Because that was the first call from London to Murshida to me. And then I thought of Margaret right away. And in New York, she was 3 hours ahead, I guess. So it was about 5 in the morning then. I don't know, something. And she said, Phyllis, it's 5 in the morning. I said, yes, Margaret, Baba's dropped the body. And then she said she couldn't do a thing for an hour or two. And then she called Myrtle Beach. So it was interesting how it went around like that. But actually, I've thought about that many times, that seeing Baba so worn out physically, even in 62, that you couldn't really wish him to stay in that very painful, worn out body. So, and also through my friend Adele as a nurse, we were hearing all sorts of private letters about Baba's physical condition deteriorating, which other people didn't know. So it wasn't exactly a shock. What was much more a shock, to me anyway, was the beginning of the new life, where Baba disbanded everything and said he might drop the body. It was no more ashram. We weren't to depend on his nazir. He was helpless and hopeless, and all of that was a tremendous emotional thing, more than just dropping a physical body. Well, I'm speaking for myself. Because I hadn't met Baba yet, I didn't know whether I would and all that. Any other questions? Well, now we'll show this movie. I'll explain a little bit about it. It was taken in 1952, after Baba's accident. You'll see him in the wheelchair with the cast on, and with Mayer and the other women modeling. And it was taken in Switzerland. Yes. Oh, the game, yes. We have a little game here first. You feel like playing a game, anybody? Yeah. This game is called the Worry Operation. At first, I'll tell my worry operation story.
Tell your worry operation.
I want you all to write your worry. The main worry you have. You want to pass out pencils? This is a worry. Write your main worry here.
You don't have to sign it.
No signing. Absolutely not. I had a worry operation for Baba. I'll shorten it because we're running short of time. I had a worrying mind. I had a terrible worrying mind. Always did. You're going round and round like this. And then Baba, this is in 52, he created a kind of false situation on the beach. I was walking with Baba on the beach. And suddenly he looked, it was the first experience I had of Baba not being pleased with me. He was gesturing and frowning at me and all that. And it seemed that I should have led them back to the center. But I had been talking to Mera, and very absorbed talking to her, and I didn't know at that time that nobody would move unless Mera moved. So she and I were talking, and we did pass the path back to the center. So Baba was saying, "Why didn't you? We'll be late. We should have shown where the path was." And I thought, oh, Baba's displeased with me, and my mind went like this, and it was terrible. And Baba was frowning and everything. And I felt, I don't know what I'd done wrong, but I'd done something wrong. And I misled people on the path. I was going through this whole thing. And then suddenly Baba gestures like this, and Mani interprets, "Filis, stop worrying." And I couldn't stop. And then again he gestured 3 times. And my mind was going round and round, just the worst possible. And then he called me up to him, and he took my wrist, the left hand, the left wrist with his right hand. And I felt this sort of energy go up. And suddenly it all blanked out. And I couldn't remember a thing. I was happy. I wasn't worried. And I couldn't even remember it till the end of the day when I was trying to tell it to somebody what happened. And since that time, I don't worry. I don't really worry the way I ever did before. Where you really a bad mental condition. It was a very bad habit, probably 10, 15 lives old or something. So I call it my worry operation. So we're having a worry operation. I want you to each write your worry here. Whatever it is. Everybody has one. At least, is there anybody here not worrying?
Yeah, I'm worried about it.
You're worried about your worry.
No, but I'm not worried.
Oh, you're not worried. Well, it is an age-old habit. Baba says you worry so much that it gets to be a habit, you don't even know what you worry about anymore. And if you take the worry away from somebody, I know you've gone through this, they have another worry right away. It's like a dog with a bone. You can't take the bone away, or you have to get another bone. So you cure one problem, and immediately you have another one, and another one, another one. And this is our occupation. I have a worry. And it uses up so much energy that it's not creative, it never solves a problem. It destroys that poise that Baba wants, spiritual poise. And so Baba's constantly, the most famous thing Baba said, don't worry, be happy. So, but if I had to get rid of the worry, that's a big thing.